This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome to the Fan Report, a show made by fans for fans, part of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and with me is Andrew's going to give us this week's topics.
Well, March Madness has added a little bit more clarity to the NBA draft field, or so we think. And the Lions may be attached to some quarterback names. We'll talk about it. It's your Fan Report.
You know, you mentioned that March Madness may have given some clarity to the NBA draft board. If anything, it's muddied the waters for me.
Yeah.
Like guys I thought I liked, I'm kind of a little bit more passive on. Guys that I didn't like necessarily had great games. Like Paolo Banchero had a great game against Michigan State.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A great game. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I know he's a good talent offensively, but like defensively, he does struggle. But, I mean, I can't doubt the offense, and he showed it against a team that I would have anticipated playing some good defense. And, I mean, the metrics throughout the regular season show that they were a good defensive team. So,
I heard a comp the other day, and I can't remember where I heard it from now, but they compared him to Pistons Blake Griffin. Not in a bad way, like just like Blake Griffin the year he was good with the Pistons.
The good year that Blake Griffin had where they made the playoffs, and it was probably the best basketball Blake Griffin's played in his entire career.
Which I think it's a kind of a fair comp, to be honest with you.
It is. It really is, just based on play style. But when you brought that up to me over a drink we were having, it
was a good drink.
It was. It honestly made me think, though, like, does that fit? Does a guy like Blake Griffin in that one really good year in Detroit fit with this team? Because what do we do with Saddiq Bey? Mm-hmm. What happens with Cade? Because Blake Griffin was ball dominant in that year, and he had to be. He didn't have a ton of talent around him. Facilitating wasn't a strong point of his that year. It was primarily he was a scoring first. He facilitated a little bit, more than most years in his career, but he wasn't a guy that you could say move the ball willingly. He was very much a shoot first kind of guy, and we needed him to be. Paolo Banchero is kind of that same type of player. Like he's a scorer. And yeah, that's nice to have, but what do you do with guys like Saddiq? What do you do with guys like Cade? And yeah, Cade's assist numbers probably would balloon, but would the scoring come down? Would Saddiq be negatively affected? I mean, we've seen how at times he struggles with Jeremy Grant in the lineup because of the type of role that they both play. So, Andrew, do you think Paolo Banchero fits into this system with guys like Saddiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, and Cade being there? And then I'm gonna have a follow-up question after that as well.
There are ways in which he does. I mean, one of the major things that we need is a go-to scorer. Like, some days Saddiq can be that. Jeremy Grant, if he stays here, some days Jeremy can be that. But I just don't see what he would provide outside of what, like you said, what we're already getting from guys like Jeremy Grant or Saddiq Bey. Because to be honest with you, there's two types of players that I think we're desperately lacking, and that is a athletic big. You know, Marvin Bagley's kind of filling that hole a bit, but I don't want to be too reliant on Marvin Bagley. And two is a shot creator, someone who can create their own shot. And both of those exist in this draft. Banchero would be I don't think it's a piece that's going to hurt you, but at the same time, I don't see you winning with that makeup. I don't see placing Banchero on this roster being a winning formula because, one, it feels a little bit redundant with what the kind of abilities you already have on this roster, and two, I am very wary of the defensive liability that he poses out there.
So my question, I guess I have two follow-up questions. I guess I lied. My first one is, and kind of piggybacking off what you just said, if you draft Banchero, you're almost guaranteeing Jeremy Grant's not going to be here. Because at that point, what do you do? What do you do with Jeremy Grant, Saddiq Bey, and
news that
Paolo
just dropped
Banchero?
of Portland really wanted to pursue Jeremy Grant in the offseason?
Right. So that's that. If they wanted him that bad, should have given us Anthony Simons. I'm just going to say that.
Might be too late now.
Right. Point two, because to further that question, if you are replacing Jeremy Grant with Paolo Banchero, is that an upgrade? Yeah, it's probably a scoring upgrade, but it's definitely a defensive downgrade in a big way. So does that actually make this team any better? Or would they still be a middling 25, 30 win team at best? Because that's what they are right now. And frankly, they're struggling to hit 20 wins.
No, I don't think it does. I just legitimately don't see how it could. That may be me being a little short-sighted. I mean, Banchero can be a fantastic player for the right team.
Absolutely, 100%. I think his ceiling is higher than Jeremy Grant's for sure.
Yeah.
But again, I even if Banchero was every bit as good, if not a little bit better than Jeremy Grant, or even marginally better than Jeremy Grant, like, does that produce winning basketball with this roster? And I don't think it does. I think we've seen Jeremy Grant at his ceiling with this team and what this team can do with the talent we have, and it's not a whole lot. So that really doesn't move the needle as much for me. Now, my second question, this is the question I originally had. If you do go that route, what the hell do you do with the 2 guard? I'm at a point now where my biggest holes on this team, and probably now creeping up to my number 1 hole, is the 2 guard. Like, we don't have a 2.
Yeah, it is
and
the number 1 hole.
It's a desperate need for this team because Cade desperately needs some backcourt help. Shot creating, being able to be an at-will scorer that can take over. And Cade needs that 1-2 punch type of guy. And Sadiq can bring it some nights, but he's a little more reliant on ball movement and somebody to feed him the basketball than he is at creating his own shot. And obviously the other hole is a big man presence that can play some offense down there, which right now we're kind of getting that with Marvin Bagley. He just doesn't bring it on the defensive side.
Have you been liking those lineups that have been thrown out of Marvin Bagley and Isaiah Stewart together?
It brings a different look. I do think in short spurts it can be effective, but with the way that the league is, with how much small ball is played, I think you're going to get played off the floor with a line like that. It just won't work in a long stretch of minutes. Like in short bursts, to give somebody a break, sure, it's fun and it's different. I just don't think it's one of those things that works in a long stretch of a game.
And I'll be honest, and I feel like this is probably an unpopular opinion. I agree that I like it in short spurts, but what I want to see with it is not that I hate what I'm seeing with it, but what I want to see something a little different in the fact that we're basically playing Bagley at the 4, letting him roll out to the 3-point line, and he's been hitting shots here and there.
It's been okay,
out there, but I kind of want to see the role switched.
I wouldn't hate that idea.
I want to finally,
at least on the offensive side of the ball,
just try to stretch the ball for a few games. Like
now, so something
stretch the floor for a few games.
Something that we had been hearing about was how much Isaiah Stewart is beginning to work on that outside shot and stretching the floor a little bit. Lately, we haven't seen it though. Like I feel like it's just kind of disappeared. Does that make you think that the Pistons are eyeing not a big man in the draft, that they're really zeroing in on a guard in this draft, in primarily a 2-1 or 2? Do you think the Pistons are in the belief that they won't be in the market for one of the top 2 big men in this draft? They won't be in that spot. I
wouldn't read into it too much personally. I think it's more on the lines of they want to work on it through the offseason. Just like Dwayne Casey's talking about, he wants Killian Hayes to get a certain number of shots up per day in the offseason and start really working on that jumper. Like, I think it's the same thing with Isaiah. I think it's not something that let's work on it now and then we'll test it out now. I think they're reserving that and that look for next season.
Then why during that like week or 2 week stretch did we see a bunch of videos of Isaiah Stewart putting up threes in practice saying, oh, they're really starting to work on his 3-ball, but then just stop 2 weeks later? Like that just
we don't know if he stopped working on it. We just know we haven't seen it in games. He's also
taking fewer and fewer of them. Like there was that 2 week stretch where he was taking some threes, and now all of a sudden he's not. Like it was weird to see him bump up the 3-point attempts and then all of a sudden stop.
I wonder if it's the ability of Marvin Bagley to stretch the floor a little bit, which made him feel more comfortable keeping Isaiah Stewart down low for at least the rest of the season. I wouldn't
give Bagley that much credit outside. The dude's like a 30% 3-point shooter in his career. Like he's not that good. And this year, I don't even think he's that good. Like at least in a Pistons uniform, he's like right around there. So either way, it's just weird to me to see that pop up and on the radar and then all of a sudden just fall off the map and then push it off to the offseason. Maybe, I mean, it could just be maybe they just saw something they didn't like and it was messing up his game during the season and they don't want to do that, so they're going to wait. That's fine. Like, okay, that's obviously the less exciting talking point, but it's just weird to me. And it does kind of give me a little, maybe I am just reading too much into it, but it does kind of give me a little bit of an inkling that, hey, maybe they do feel like they're not going to be in that spot to grab one of Jabari Smith or Chet Holmgren at the top of this draft. And maybe beyond those top two guys, outside of Banchero, like the rest of the names in that 3 through 8 range are mostly guards, at least the ones that the Pistons would target. So, yeah. And if that's where they're expecting to be, which frankly, that is where I expect them to be, I could see us picking 4th or 5th this year.
Now, unless this trade with Portland goes down and we get that Pelicans pick, then we could be back in business for both a big and a guard.
I mean, we could be. Like, at that point, yeah.
Because I 100% think that's, at this point, that if that trade goes down, that's what's going to be. It's going to be a salary match. I think they have Eric Bledsoe, I think, right? Yeah. If I'm not mistaken. So they probably throw him to match salaries and then give us a pick.
Yeah, no, I don't doubt it. I definitely could see Portland being aggressive for Jeremy Grant. It doesn't make sense to me.
Me neither. Not at all.
Why would they want a 28-year-old, $20+ million expiring deal that they're not going to keep long term? Or I wouldn't expect them to anyways. That's not going to give you winning basketball. I don't know. Whatever. But
like, this is going for someone who likes Jeremy Grant. I would be pissed if I was a Portland fan.
Oh, me too.
Like we finally have the youth movement starting to come through with guys like Anthony Simons and Keon Johnson, and like I would be very annoyed if all of a sudden
it just, like I said, it doesn't make sense for their timeline in any way. And
yeah,
so what they would end up with is cap space and no first round pick on a rebuilding team. Like that sounds like a recipe for disaster. But anyways. You know what? I forgot. I lost my train of thought. But go ahead and continue with whatever you want to.
I know we were still talking draft, but so like in terms of March Madness itself, I mean, one of the things we said last podcast that we were going to be looking.
That's the conversation we were having.
was that potential Memphis Gonzaga matchup where you can see Chet Holmgren match up with Jalen Duren, and there was some positives, there was some negatives. What I wanted to see from Chet offensively, I did not really get to see in terms of him holding his own down there on the offensive side of the ball. But he also did give Jalen Duren fits on the defensive side of the ball. So, I mean, there's some positive negatives, but it definitely gave me pause more than it encouraged me.
Yeah, and this is coming from somebody who has kind of been a little bit weary on Chet Holmgren because of the fact that, one, he plays at Gonzaga, so he's not seeing a ton of high-level competition. The 195-pound frame does worry me. And when I say the competition, I mean like he hasn't really gotten to experience a big who can go toe-to-toe with him in his time at Gonzaga. And that worried me a little bit because he wasn't really challenged. And and as I was following this game against Memphis, because it really was probably the first opportunity we get to see on a big stage for Chet Holmgren to get involved, I wasn't impressed. You know, he seemed to struggle offensively, and even defensively, he had some help out there going up against Memphis's bigs and Jalen Duren, which he did his job, but But on the offensive end is where I was hoping Chet Holmgren would really show me something, because that's where I was wondering if he could hold his own there. And 9 points, 9 boards, I mean, those numbers don't jump off the page to me. And the 4 of 7 shooting, I would expect him, if he's really as good as he is, I was expecting to see him being the best player on the floor. He wasn't even the second best player on his own team.
It's part of the reason I picked Gonzaga to win the Natties, because I'm like, Chet Holmgren is going to be the best player on the floor in any game he plays. It's part of the reason I did.
And he wasn't. Like, he wasn't even close. And frankly, talking defensively, going up against Jalen Duren, yeah, he shut him down, but he also had 5 fouls. So somebody was giving him problems that was forcing him to be put into a bad position because at 7'4", not 7'4", but at 7 feet tall with the size that he has, he shouldn't be getting into foul trouble like that because he towers over everybody else, especially with the arm length that he has. It's all bad positioning that he's in, and that worries me about about his defense translating to the NBA because it's almost all positioning and effort at that point. So if a dude who's 7 feet is getting into foul trouble in games against good competition, then what's going to happen in the NBA? His body size, I think, is going to start to come back to haunt him a little bit, and where he gets himself into foul trouble because he doesn't have the body to hold his position as much. And then on the offense side of the ball, again, that game right there made me do some digging on him. Yeah. It made me go back because I'd be lying if I said I watched every Gonzaga game this year. I'd be lying if I said I watched a bunch of them. I don't know where to find them half the time. So I went back and did a little bit of digging on his games against high-level Division I Power 5 teams. And I looked at, I think I sent you box scores from, 6 or 7 games this year, 5 to 6 games. And outside of 2 games, he was shooting below 50% and was only in double digits, I think, one time, outside of 2 games. In the 2 games he had a back-to-back stretch against UCLA and one other team, I can't remember who it was, that he put up 15 and 16 points or 15 and 14 points. Like he didn't dominate the basketball game in any way, and I don't think he had it.
Yeah, you said he had 6 and 6 and 8 and 8 against St. Mary's, both.
Which that's not even that good of a like that. That's not even a high level team. They're just ranked. Like that's just the best basketball team in his own conference outside of
5 and 11 against Texas Tech,
which is not great.
The back-to-back was Duke and UCLA. He had 16, 7, and 15 and 6, respectively.
Which solid games, but not a single double-double. Not a single game that he.
The only one I discounted was when you sent me the Texas game because he only played 9 minutes in that game.
Right. But those games don't tell you he was the best player on the floor. And a guy who was supposed to be this high level of a prospect, when he goes up against top level competition, he folds. And that's what worries me about Chet Holmgren because I really couldn't find top level competition games that he succeeded in. All the games that he was really good in were games against subpar teams pretty much. That's a little bit concerning for a high level draft prospect, if you ask me. And considering the competition's only going to get tougher from here, not just in the tournament, but in the NBA, it ain't going to be a walk in the park. I can promise you that.
Now, how about Jabari Smith against Miami? I mean, Jabari Smith's biggest calling card was his 3-point shooting and his size. And Jabari Smith goes 1 for 8, and they get run out of the gym.
They did get run out of the gym in this game. And I think a lot of that was... a lot of his 1 for 8 was probably some him trying to do too much, him trying to just throw up desperation threes, stay in the game or come back. It's hard for me to just say I don't think this guy's any good.
We're not going to sit here and say Jabari Smith is no longer a good 3-point shooter because he had a bad shooting game.
Right. No, in the case of Chet Holmgren, he was largely ineffective because he wasn't involved in the plays and wasn't in the position to make plays. Jabari Smith was there. He just wasn't hitting the shots. And Jabari Smith also still had 15 damn rebounds. He was at least effective somewhere. And 4 assists also, which is a great number for a big man. So, he was effective somewhere. The only downside to his game, because he also had 3 blocks, the only downside to Jabari Smith's game was his shooting. Yeah. And bad shooting nights happen.
Just so happened to be his worst shooting night of his college career.
That it absolutely was.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. It was a big game, and he.
Let's talk about total field goal percentage. I'm pretty sure he shot a little better inside, but still.
No, he did not. He was 3 of 16 inside. He was 3 of 16 total. 1 of 8 outside. So he was 2 of 8 inside. So sure, if you want to say he shot better, fine.
25%.
He was terrible.
Oh man.
It's hard for me to discredit a guy because he had a bad shooting night. It's easier for me to poke holes in Chet Holmgren's game than it is for me to poke holes in Jabari Smith's game at this point.
I just wish they'd still won that game so I can be like, all right, let's see if you can bounce back from that.
Yes, at least we get to see Chet Holmgren in more opportunities. Can he make a bounce back against in a bigger game? You know what I mean? Like that's going to be a big thing to watch, and I do believe Chet Holmgren will bounce back. I think he is a good player, a really good player. But if he doesn't,
let me be clear. This didn't scare me off him. It just gave me more questions than I would like to have.
Oh, same, absolutely. Like I'm still Chet Holmgren's still like my second or third prospect right now. It's just I have more question marks coming out of that game than I had going in, and that does give me some pause. And in the case of Jabari Smith, my questions didn't really grow. They just they are what they are. It is what it is with Jabari Smith. If he has a bad shooting night, he's going to play a bad game. That's just who the player is.
This is why I was part of the reason I was saying I really wish I could have seen him like at least try to develop some sort of post game. So on those bad shooting nights, he at least still has a post game to rely on. But
right,
yeah.
But
you know who didn't disappoint so far in the tournament? Jaden Ivey.
Damn right. No, Jaden Ivey's been everything you could have asked him to be. Like he's been the absolute stud that we hoped he would be. He's been the reason Purdue is in the spot that they're in. Like he is the guy for them. And I mean, I don't even know what else to say about him. The guy's been everything for that team. I mean, 18 points, 3 assists, 3 boards, which I mean, sure, he was outscored by a teammate coming off the bench who 22 points in 24 minutes off the bench. That's ridiculous. But
only it's a knock against him though.
The only thing about Jaden Ivey that game really says was it was very much lofted by his free throws. But that tells you he was getting to the line, which is something the Pistons seriously struggle with.
In 2 games, he has taken 18 free throws in the tournament. In 2 games.
And making a high amount of them as well. That's the big part of it.
15 of 18.
Yes. Yep. So, again, I'm not... Jaden Ivey's done everything I could have asked him to so far in this tournament. No doubt about it.
It's like... It's getting to the point to me with Jaden Ivey where I'm willing to just take the risk because of how well the fit could work. Because I know there's still the question of, as an off-ball guard, will he still be as effective? But at this point, he's shown me he has all the tools to do it. He just has to be willing to adapt his game to that kind of role.
He just has to be put into a role that makes him do it. That's all.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think with the tools that Jaden Ivey has, there's no question in my mind he can adapt to that role.
Because let's be honest here. If we were looking for a point guard in this draft, right? If this was last year and Jaden Ivey came to us, our question would be, okay, but can he be lead facilitator?
Right.
So,
and because he is a shot-creating, shoot-first guard, which is that not everything we want in a 2-guard?
Yep.
So, I don't really worry about Jaden Ivey doing what we need him to do at the 2-guard position because, one, I know Cade's going to get him the ball, and even if he gives him the ball in a situation where Jaden Ivey still needs to create his own shot, guess what? He can do it and do it well.
Yep.
I'm Jaden Ivey, in my opinion, really has just kind of the gap is growing for me with Jaden Ivey. Like he's becoming the guy that I want in a Pistons uniform and starting to take a stranglehold on that role. Like I want to see this guy in a Pistons uniform at this point because he fills the need of what I think is probably the Pistons' number 1 need. Better than any of these other prospects. Like, yes, Chet Holmgren would fill a huge need at center. Like he's a unicorn type player, fills that big man in the middle. He's got to add 40 pounds. But is that as big of a need as the absolute black hole that we have at the 2? Like right now we're starting Corey Joseph or Hamidou Diallo at the 2. I like Hami. He's not a starting 2 in this league.
Yeah. Now, there is one name that has gained the most ground for me so far in the first 2 rounds of this tournament. This gained more ground for me than any other prospect. That is Ben Mathurin.
He's played well.
Yeah, especially the round of 32 against TCU, putting up 30 points, 8 boards. Got to the free throw line 13 times. I mean, that's a guy that I could also envision playing across from Cade. So he, as long as his stock doesn't rise too much, I think he will make me comfortable with if we don't fall into that top 3 because I don't think he's going to break the top 3, but he'd make me comfortable if we do wind up with the 4th or 5th pick or maybe even 6. Hopefully, he's still there at 6, but.
Yeah, he's a guy that is, again, like you said, is starting to rise in a big way on my draft board as well. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest with you, I'm starting to like the guards a hell of a lot more than I'm liking the big men in this draft. Like I can't, I gotta say it, and the reason, part of it is because that is the need I look at the most for the Pistons. Mm-hmm. One, but two, the guards are just stepping up. Like Mathurin, Ivy, like these guys are stepping up and being huge factors, the best player on the floor for their teams in some of the biggest spots, and are willing their teams to victory in the tournament, and they're doing roles that I would need the Pistons to fill. So guys like Benedict Mathurin, Jaden Ivey, they're jumping up my draft board in a big way.
Yep.
So I am going to need to see consistency out of Mathurin throughout this tournament. Mm-hmm. So, I'm hoping Arizona continues on beyond just the next game. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping the same for Purdue because I want to see it from Jaden Ivey some more also.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, right now, my number one complaint with Mathurin, my number one worry in terms of a fit next to Cade is the fact that, at least in the tournament, in 2 games, he has 7 turnovers total.
Yes, and with Cade's 9.
Yeah. I don't know if we want 2 turnover guards, 2 turnover prone guards, but we'll see.
Which I think happens. In Mathurin's case, his turnovers probably would drop a little bit, putting him in the role that we would be, because his role would quite literally be, dude, if you get the ball, score. Mm-hmm. We don't necessarily need you to facilitate as much because Cade can handle that. Yep. Sure, it's nice to have a guy who can make the extra pass, and Mathurin definitely can do that. But score. Your role is score first.
But man, would Cade and Mathurin be a jumbo-sized backcourt though? Like,
I love it. I have zero issues with a big backcourt. Like matchup nightmare.
Exactly.
You want to talk about the amount of length that this team would have at the 1, 2, 3, 4 positions with the lineups that we'd be able to put out there? Like, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. You quite literally would have positionless basketball at that point. Mm-hmm. And I would love every second of it.
So many different looks you can throw out there.
Oh, I know.
But anything else to add on March Madness /draft?
No, that pretty much covered it.
Shall we move over to the lines?
How are we doing on time here? Yeah, let's go ahead and move on over to the Lions. If we have time, we'll come back to something at the end here. But
okay.
So lately, obviously, the name that seems to be the favorite to go number 1 overall to the Jags after they franchise tagged their left tackle has become Aiden Hutchinson, a guy who has largely been the name mocked to the Lions at number 2 because the Jags were expected to take a tackle. Well, with the franchise tag now, it's Aiden Hutchinson at number 1, and the Lions are now left with a situation of what do we do at number 2. Pretty much everybody and their mama under the sun has been mocked to the Lions at number 2.
Yeah, I'm at a point where I have zero clue who we're taking. Normally, we're what, like a month out from the draft? You normally have it narrowed down to like 1 or 2 guys at this point, especially if you're picking number 2. Like, as a fan, I'm saying.
I'm at a point right now where I would much prefer a trade to the Giants for 5 and 7. Because then I could justify...
I don't disagree with you.
I can justify taking Kyle Hamilton, and I can justify taking Kayvon Thibodeau at that point. And I know they want one of the bigger tackles in the draft. Well, their chance to get him at number 2 is going to be there, hopefully.
No, I definitely think this is a draft that I want quantity over. I don't even want to call it quality, but you know what I mean. Like, I want to throw more darts at the board.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. I'm not going to say that this draft is super deep all across the board. It's just the
high end of it.
The ceiling isn't as high as it has been in past years.
Yeah.
So a little bit more quantity in the earlier rounds can be a little bit better than just taking one shot at one guy. You know, take 2, 3, 4 shots at 2, 3, 4 guys like that. I'd prefer that. Which, if the Lions do trade their first round pick and move back to 5 and 7, if the Giants are so kind and willing, then you'd have 4 shots in the first 64 picks or whatever it is at that point. So, or first 34 picks. Oh God, that'd be nice. Like, there's your rebuild right there. But who knows if the Giants would even be willing to make that trade? I have no idea. I know they're a team that's got a lot of holes to fill also. However, with that being said, even if, we go whatever route in this draft, we take a defensive end, we take a wide receiver, we take a safety, there's still one glaring hole on this roster. And it's not even arguably. It is the most important hole on this roster that anyone can have. It's quarterback position. And there was a lot of speculation on whether or not the Lions would have been involved in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. They apparently were not. You can be mad about it or you can be fine with it. I won't even talk about what my thoughts were on that because it's irrelevant. However, there is one other quarterback that is available. And there's a name that there's a lot of people, including Mike Florio, who has said that the Lions should be going after this guy, and it's perfect fit. And that's Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield from the Browns. He obviously struggled last year due to an injury. His unwillingness to just sit with the injury and not destroy his shoulder has probably costed him tens of millions of dollars. How much of Baker Mayfield's struggles, we'll start with this question. How much of Baker Mayfield's struggles over the last year do you attribute to him or to his team? To his coaching, primarily. Because he had Nick Chubb. He had Jarvis Landry, OBJ, David Njoku. Like, he had weapons there.
I think it's more him than the coaching. I think this season will prove it out with Deshaun Watson under center. I think there's a big talent gap between Deshaun Watson and Baker
There's
Mayfield.
a big talent gap with Deshaun Watson. Also, Deshaun's going to have somebody to throw the ball to. I mean, yes, they grabbed Amari Cooper. Can he stay healthy? And who's their number 2? T. Higgins?
Rashad Higgins. T.
Higgins. Yeah, T. Higgins on the Bengals. That's right. I always get the two confused. Rashard Higgins, yes. Because I believe Jarvis Landry is gone as well. So that's a big drop off from 1 to 2.
Yeah. But anyway, watching Browns games, and the only reason I was watching Browns games, so I was betting on Browns games, betting on them to lose. Actually, I bet on them to win a few times. They bit me in the butt. Anyway, back to the topic.
They dealt with a lot of injuries last year.
I saw Baker Mayfield make way too many dumb decisions, hold on the ball for way too long on way too many occasions, willingly take sacks, make really careless turnovers, careless passes that lead to turnovers. When he's on, he's on. It's just those games are few and far between.
Yeah, it's a lot of inconsistency. There's no doubt about it. Now, Mike Florio's reasoning that I was a perfect fit is because he believes Dan Campbell can control him. He believes Dan Campbell speaks Baker's language. He's got that fiery attitude to him, that louder than life mentality, and Baker speaks that language, and he believes it.
We're like the girl at prom that sees the guy break up with another girl and like, I can fix him. I know he's a douchebag, but I can fix him.
I mean, that speaks about that definitely fits in more than one way because Baker is largely known.
And how often does that actually work out?
Which is a fair comment, and you're not necessarily wrong. But and I know I've been a proponent of giving Jared Goff a shot. Let me ask you this: whose ceiling is higher, Jared Goff or Baker Mayfield?
Baker Mayfield. Because if Baker Mayfield can actually play smarter football, I do believe that
and that's
he has more tools, more actual tools at his disposal in terms of physical talent than Jared Goff does.
I'll be honest with you. I don't know what the Browns necessarily set Baker up for success there. Not last year, anyways. The year prior, when he went 11-5 and had 26 touchdowns to 8 picks, like that's successful. That's a good year out of a quarterback. Sure, he only threw for 3,500 yards, but they were a run first team when you have Nick Chubb under center
and Kareem Hunt.
Like, that's not a pass first team. That's a run first team. Much more than the Lions are. Let's put it that way. He, in fact, threw only 486 passes that year, which would tie for his second lowest. He threw exactly 486 in his rookie year and 418 last year, but he only played 14 games last year. So, and he also hit 486 his rookie year in 14 games. So it largely would have been that year would have been his lowest passing total in terms of passing attempts if you average it out. I don't know what the Browns necessarily set him up for success. I don't. I think the OBJ project did not work. I don't think their personalities mesh at all. Like, my God, putting two loudmouths like that together was a nightmare. I do worry about the mentality of Baker a little bit. Yes, I do think Dan Campbell is a stronger personality that can hone that in a little bit and bring out the positives in Baker. I'm just wondering if. I mean, let me put it this way. What would it take for you to say, like, what could be the asking price that you would say yes to Baker Mayfield in terms of a trade with Cleveland?
I actually saw somewhere, and let me see if I can find it again. There was some reporter speculating that the Browns would actually have to trade a pick to get rid of Baker Mayfield.
I've heard everything. Like, I've literally heard everything under the sun for in a trade with the Browns for Baker. I've heard the Browns want a first-round pick. That ain't happening. I've heard the Browns want a day 2 pick. I'd be a little bit hesitant with that one, but because day 2, second and third round, right? A third round pick, if it's a late third, I might be willing. I'd give him a 4th round pick for Baker. Would you?
Yeah.
I'd give him a 4th. And would you give him a third?
Then I'd be hesitant, to be honest with you. I'd give him a 4th. They are asking for a first. I just saw that article from Sports Illustrated.
It's not happening. It's not happening. There's no way in a chance in hell that a team's going to give up a first round pick. But
via Adam Schefter, there is a team currently in talks to trade for Baker Mayfield, and they asked for a draft pick in exchange for taking on his contract. So I think that's where that report would have originated.
See, that's how you know the Browns will not be getting a first-round pick for Baker Mayfield. If the team is coming on saying, oh, no, for us to take him off your hands, you got to give us a pick. They ain't getting a first for him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
So, with that being said, does the possibility of a probably 27-year-old quarterback, and with Baker Mayfield's ability and potential, but also the headache that comes along with him, does that excite you about the potential future for the Lions?
I mean, Baker Mayfield is an exciting player. Like, let's not get that wrong. He's exciting to watch. As frustrating as he can be, it's exciting to watch. And like I said earlier, I do believe that Baker Mayfield's ceiling is higher than Jared Goff's, but his floor is also lower than Jared Goff's, I feel like.
I'm going to disagree with you there. Baker Mayfield's floor is pretty damn low.
As I said, his floor is lower than Jared Goff.
Jared Goff's floor is pretty damn low. Like,
I mean, it is. They both
did you not
floors.
watch the first 10 weeks of last season? He was probably the 34th best quarterback in football last year until the final 5 weeks. That's pretty terrible.
But
Baker was probably 25th.
But back to what I was saying, just the fact that I feel like Baker Mayfield does have that higher ceiling, like there is that chance if for some reason Dan Campbell is the quarterback whisperer and can.
We have no reason to believe this. By the way,
exactly, zero reason to believe this. Like if he can be that girlfriend that takes on the douchebag boyfriend and then changes him, then yeah, that's a reason to be excited about the future if you get Baker Mayfield. I just don't have that much belief in it happening, and if we trade for him and it ends up costing more than I like, I'll probably be upset. If we trade for him, like you said, we only get a 4th round pick. Yeah, let's take the shot.
Do you think last season was the floor for Baker Mayfield?
I mean, it was pretty. He had his highest interception percentage last season, if I'm not mistaken.
He did. He threw 17 touchdowns for 13 picks.
2019 was his highest interception percentage. 3.9% of passes were intercepted. He
threw 22 touchdowns to 21 picks that year also.
Yeah.
So basically 1 for 1. He was a little bit better than that number last year, but if I remember right, that 2019
But he also
Browns
threw for almost 1,000 more yards in 2019 than in 2021.
If I remember right, that 2019 Browns team was also really terrible.
Yeah, they were 6-10. They've had 6 wins every year under Baker Mayfield except for 2020.
Right, when they went 11-5, which is where the hype for Baker came from, pretty much.
Exactly.
Although his rookie year, he did, he was an offensive rookie of the year. I think he was second for offensive rookie of the year that year. Yeah, he was second behind Saquon Barkley, who had 1,300 rushing yards and 700. He had 2,000 all-purpose yards that year. You weren't beating Saquon.
Yeah, But purely from a statistics standpoint, yeah, I think 2021 would be the worst year for Baker Mayfield. But I do think that receiving core suffered a lot of injuries in 2021. It's like
that whole team was just a mess last year. Going into the season with the expectations they had.
They didn't have Nick Chubb for a giant chunk of the season, too.
Right.
And there was a lot of stuff going on in 2021 that, like, you kind of want to put an asterisk on that performance. But statistically, yes, it's the low point of Baker Mayfield's career. But if you want me to tell you what I think it's 2019 is where he actually was the worst.
So, with that being said, like, I kind of flip-flop back and forth with Baker. Like, his ceiling is a lot higher than Jared Goff's. And I'm not a huge believer I'm not a believer at all in Jared Goff being the future quarterback of this team. I think he's going to be given a shot this year to be the guy. And if he puts up numbers like what we saw with the Rams, he can be the guy. But
yeah,
I don't believe he will be. And with that being said, that leaves a lot of question marks open for what could be the future quarterback under center for this franchise. And normally by now, if there was a name in next year's draft, you'd be hearing about it already. And we're really not. I mean, I know we haven't even reached this year's draft, but you'd still be hearing about it.
Speaking of this year's draft, did you see the video that came out of Malik Willis?
I was just about to get into that.
Salivating over.
Give me just a minute here. Lions also went to somebody's pro day the other day. They went and watched Malik Willis play. The only team that did not was the Rams, which, there you go, Stafford. Plus, they don't have first-round picks, so it doesn't even matter. Yeah. But he also got a big extension out there. Stafford did.
Oh, yeah, he did.
But the Lions attended a pro day for Malik Willis, and there's been a lot of reports about some teams being interested in taking him potentially even in the top 5. He's drawing interest from a lot of people, and I have seen time after time, especially lately, more and more analysts saying the Lions are interested in a quarterback in this draft and could be willing to take one high. Most of these analysts have put the Lions taking a quarterback at 32, whether it be Sam Howell, Matt Corral, whatever his name is, at 32. Some, however, put the Lions taking Malik Willis at number 2. How do you feel about that?
Did you see that Matt Corral's hands got bigger?
That was Kenny Pickett.
Pickett, sorry.
And yes,
Jesus
I did.
Christ.
And I found it hilarious. They grew an eighth of an inch. So instead of 8.5 inches, they are now 8 5/8 inches of, in a 2-week span. They grew an eighth of an inch.
I think they were 8 1/4 when he was coming out of high school going into college, right?
Yeah. And I looked at it and I laughed because 1, why are we talking about this? 2, his hands are still drastically undersized. 3, there's no way in hell his hands grew in 2 weeks. That doesn't happen.
So in terms of Malik, like, again, I had said months ago that Malik Willis is probably my favorite prospect QB wise, like my favorite QB prospect, but that doesn't mean I want him. I don't know why everyone's salivating over that video
because he can hit a 40-yard route. Okay, that's kind of a prerequisite to be a quarterback in the league.
In his defense, that was like a 65-yard throw, but
no, it was he's really good at hitting the 40-yard route, like with nobody wide open, like with nobody there. That's what people are salivating over. That, oh my God, he can throw a ball. He has a cannon for an arm.
I thought people were salivating about the cannon for an arm, but
yes,
he can. What I was going to say is 65 yards. Most NFL quarterbacks can do that in this day and age.
Yes, you're not wrong, 100%. But yes, they are salivating over the cannon for an arm. But they're also saying, oh my God, he can hit. He throws a great ball at 40 yards. And again, I feel like that's kind of a prerequisite for an NFL quarterback of today. Like you kind of have to be able to do that. Hit a guy wide open, Jesus Christ.
Do you understand how upset I would be if my quarterback could not hit a wide open receiver 40 yards on the field? With no coverage, like on him either, with no pressure and no coverage.
Oh, and let's not even talk about the pressure he was getting in that pro day with the magic fingers going in his face, like spirit hands. in his face just to throw him off, which, by the way, he knew was going to happen. Like,
is it just us as Detroit sports fans that we are jaded from solo workouts after dark? Like, solo workouts are not meaningless to us.
Most people with a head on their shoulders have look at Malik Willis's pro day film and just laugh. Like I'm just beginning to think that like pro days and the combine don't matter. Because the guys who are the combine heroes, most of them don't ever pan out. Look at John Ross, fastest 40 time ever. How's his career been? The guy who holds the record for the most reps on the 225 bench press, what did his career do? I'm pretty sure he like barely even played ever. Mm-hmm. The broad jump record holder, I don't think he's ever done a damn thing in the league. Like, the combine does not matter at all. Like, there are certain things you look for in the combine, and it's technique and footwork. That matters. DK Metcalf even proved that even some of that doesn't matter because at the combine, he looked terrible coming out of cuts. He could run fast straight, but he couldn't make a cut to save his life. Well, he proved everybody wrong in that regard because look what he's done in the NFL. The combine does not matter, and pro days matter even less because pro days, they're only going to do things that are specifically catered to make them look really good. I put so little stock in pro days and combines that I don't even care. I don't care to watch them. I don't care to pay attention. I look at game film from college, and frankly, in his case, being at Liberty, there isn't much.
I pay less and less attention to the combine every year. Like back when I was in college, I used to actually sit and watch not just pay attention. I used to sit and watch the combine. And now I barely even acknowledge it's happening.
There is one thing I honestly will put stock into at the combine, and it's if a dude is slow as shit. Like Kyle Hamilton running a 4.59, that worries me.
And if it's a dude that matters being slow, like if a defensive lineman is slow as shit, I really don't care.
No, I don't give a shit. As long as with his 5-yard split is good. Like, I want to make sure that his splits that actually are relevant to his position are good. Because that tells me, okay, this dude can get off the line. That matters. But when do I ever care about the 320-pound dude running 40 yards down the field? I don't care.
I've got defensive backs and linebackers to try to catch up with the guys. I don't need my defensive lineman.
Linebacker, 30-yard dash is fine for me because again, 40 yards downfield, he's probably already been burned.
And also in terms of linebackers, that does help if he's fast. He can probably get in the backfield a little bit quicker. But
40-yard dash ain't no backfield 40 yards.
Super shotgun.
Bro, that's probably that long snapper deserves it to be in the hall.
What is the
one
the furthest distance you're legally allowed to stand back as a QB?
I have no idea. Well,
is there a rule?
I would imagine it's.
Could I stand 20 yards behind the line if I'm a QB? Am I allowed to do that?
Good question. We do not have a rules official on this show.
By the way, this is random, but did you see that new report that came out about Urban Meyer?
Yes, that he didn't know who Aaron Donald was. Who's that 99 guy? Are you kidding me?
Deebo Samuel was like, are you?
Deebo, okay, Deebo
was one of the best wide receivers in the league this year.
As a head coach of a football team, it's embarrassing you don't know who Deebo Samuel is, but
it's less embarrassing than Aaron Donald. I'll give you that.
Like Aaron Donald is a name that everybody should know. Like that's putting it up there with like. You don't know who LeBron is. I don't know. Like the biggest names in the sport. Steph Curry. You don't know who Steph Curry is. How? You're a damn football coach. Anyways, back
Imagine
to
Dwayne Casey comes out. It's like, I hear we got to put some bodies on number 30 on the Warriors. I hear
he's
might
pretty
give us
good. Who's that guy? Man, he can really shoot.
Yeah, he came out. He was just hitting threes. I wasn't expecting that. I'd be like, go, leave. You're done.
I would fire him immediately. Anyways.
You're the GM. You literally call him while he's at the press conference. The phone rings.
I wouldn't even let him. I wouldn't even let him get to the press conference. I would just you don't even go back to the locker room. We will pack your stuff for you. You can just hang out in the hallway. And by the way, catch your own Uber home. Back to Malik Willis, though.
Yeah.
So you're not at all like into the idea of the Lions potentially going after Malik Willis, because me sitting here, I'll be straight with you. If the Lions take Malik Willis, I'd be disappointed. Because there are so many question marks with Malik Willis. Yes, he's got a cannon for an arm. Yes, he's really mobile. I get that. But he played at Liberty, 1. 2, he has problems reading good defenses or disguised defenses. He has problems with accuracy. He has problems leading his receivers. Like, he has problems with decision making. Like, there's a lot of big question marks with Malik Willis. And even if you look at the reports on him, the analysts who are in love with him and think he should be a top 10 or top 5 pick say that he's a project. Are we going to trust the Lions to develop a project at the quarterback? No. Why would we?
You mean you're completely right. Like, why rush a quarterback selection?
Right.
For someone who's not going to contribute.
This team is not yet ready.
Yeah.
Yes, we're going to be better this year than we were last year. Yes, I firmly believe that. We have a lot more talent on this roster this year. Which, by the way, did you see the signing of Mike Hughes?
No.
Lions signed Mike Hughes on a 1-year deal, a cornerback. He is one
today?
guy, yesterday, I believe. He is one guy that I like. There's so much potential there. It just hasn't been touched.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is due to injury. If he can stay healthy, I think he could be a legit corner in this league. Anyways, though, this team is going to be better this year. They have to be. Like, there's no conceivable way they wouldn't be outside of injuries happening or just some guys playing so poorly and taking such a step back that it just blows you away. Mm-hmm. This team is going to be better, but they're not ready. And I know bringing in Malik Willis doesn't mean they are ready, or it does. He's obviously still a project, but I don't think it's a recipe for success with a guy with that many question marks when you've got so much other young talent to develop also. Like, I would rather see a guy be put in a situation to succeed. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that Malik Willis would be put in that situation here. And frankly, again, I don't see it like some of these people do. And I know I'm not the expert they are. I don't see it.
Like, just to play devil's advocate, I don't believe this, but the only benefit of taking Malik Willis as a bit of a project pick is that it still allows you to see what you have in Jared Goff, and you're not going to prematurely have to throw a quarterback in the fire like you might do next year if you were to draft a quarterback.
Which is fair. Which technically they don't have to. They can retain Jared Goff for another year. They don't have to buy him out.
But that's the only devil's advocate argument I could see for trying to take a project quarterback in this draft.
Which is fair, and it does also give you another year to work with a project quarterback in Malik Willis, but it also probably disqualifies you from a quarterback next year. So, and I don't want the Lions to be in a situation where that's the case. I would rather them take a quarterback at 32 and then take a quarterback next year than I would have them take Malik Willis and not take a quarterback next year.
Yeah.
And I don't like either option. Just throwing that out there. I don't want the Lions to take a quarterback in the first or second round of this draft. I don't. But I will close, unless you have anything else, I will close things out on that with one final question.
Yes.
Between the two quarterback names we talked about, Baker Mayfield let's call it a 4th round pick, even though let's call it a 4th round pick for Baker Mayfield. You know what? Here, 4th and a 5th for Baker.
Okay.
Or Malik Willis. Take your pick. Gotta have one.
Where are we drafting Malik Willis?
You trade back to get him at number 7.
Baker Mayfield.
You trade back to get him at number 10. 11. You know what? That's the other option is 11.
Baker Mayfield.
I'm going to agree with you. Like, I think Baker is... I straight up think he's a guy you could at least win with. I don't know about a championship, but he can at least win you a division.
Yeah. I'm not going to sacrifice potentially bringing other talented pieces in here to draft Malik Willis high. Now, if you told me somehow, it's not going to happen, but if you told me somehow Malik Willis fell to 32, then maybe I'd start considering Malik Willis over Baker Mayfield.
He'd have to get caught with a video of him.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's going to happen.
Do you remember that video of the?
Yeah.
Wasn't it Robert
Laremy Tunsil?
Oh, Laramie Tunsil. That's who it
Laramie
was.
Tunsil.
Caught in a video with a gas mask bong. That shit blows me away.
Oh, it was hilarious.
I know.
It was like draft night too. Like
I know.
It leaked on draft night. And we were joking like someone wanted to draft them later in the draft, so they leaked this video.
100%.
So yeah, if anyone has any,
Would you be mad at the Lions taking him at 32? Because I wouldn't be. Like that's the one guy I'd say if they got him at 32, okay, fine.
that's the only quarterback that I would be okay taking a stab at 32.
Because then I still feel like the Lions may, if they're investing 32, they may still be willing to take a quarterback next year if they just look at this guy after a year and say he ain't.
Especially if we moved back in the draft from our pick and had like 5 and 7, so we already had 2 first-round picks, and then you want to take a random swing and Luke Willis, sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, anyways, though, guys, that is going to close it out for this week. Thank you so much for listening. We will catch you next week. Follow us on Twitter at Real Fan Report. Thank you to Detroit Sports Podcast. Andrew, thank you for joining me. We'll catch you guys later. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we will see you. This has been the Fan Reporters. Bye, fans.
For fans.
Have a good one, guys. Peace out.
Peace.